Race fans, start your engines for a non-stop thrill ride.
He's the real deal.
Unmatched. It's the most high-octane countdown show ever. Bringing you the 10 greatest NASCAR drivers of all time.
He is NASCAR.
From Jaws.
It's me again in Victory Lane.
To the Silver Fox.
He was sneaky.
From Wonder Boy.
Show me the money.
To Superman.
He's the man to beat. When does it stop?
From the Spark Plug to the Awesome One.
Awesome Bill
From Dawsonville.
From the Grandfather to the King.
He's one of a kind.
From the leader of the gang to the Man in Black.
He was the Intimidator.
But only one can be number one.
They're in a class of their own.
This is more than just a race to the finish line. It's a journey through time.
He set the standard.
Buckle up and hang on. It's the 10 greatest drivers in NASCAR history. This is number 10.
The pride of Georgia, Bill Elliott, straining car number 9 to bring it home.
Bill Elliott. Awesome Bill from Dawsonville. The fan favorite.
The Bill definitely won his share of races and definitely connected with the fans.
He was the good old boy from the South who won NASCAR's most popular driver award 16 times in a row.
Bill's got numbers that you absolutely can't argue with. More than the wins, it was when he won. He won the biggest races.
Bill Elliott gets the checker flag.
For the biggest money.
Bill Elliott is racing into the record book.
At the most important time.
Bill Elliott is going toward immortality.
Back in that day was like Superman. He really, really was. There were a lot of great victories for Bill Elliott. Whether it was winning the $1 million at Darlington.
The $1 million man, how does it feel?
I don't know. I think it'll settle in sometimes next week. I can't believe it.
Or making up all the laps at Talladega.
Bill Elliott wins here at Talladega, overcoming almost 2 laps down early this afternoon and coming back to win.
You knew if Bill Elliott was in the race, he had a chance to win.
There was a huge amount of interest that came to this sport because of Bill Elliott's run of dominance.
His dominance on the racetrack and how cool that Coors number 9 looked on the racetrack made him as popular as he was.
If he was still running every single race, I think the fans would still be voting him most popular. Just a neat guy who can really handle a race car.
Number 9.
I think when you talk greatest drivers, you include my grandfather, Lee.
Lee Petty was the patriarch.
So he was really the first professional driver that NASCAR had.
Won races, set the standard.
Lee Petty was the first guy that ever looked at this sport as a business instead of a hobby.
Once NASCAR started running, then he said, I can make a living driving a race car.
He tallied it up. He knew where the money came from. He knew where the money went.
Took what he loved, turned it into a passion, turned it into a dream for his family.
He raced for wins because the wins paid the most. If second place paid more than first, Lee Petty would have finished second every single week.
Incidentally, I didn't get to kiss the girl, and incidentally, I didn't get the trophy, but accidentally, I got the purse about 4 or 5 days after the race.
25% of the races you race in, you win, and you're not a great driver, you're a damn good driver, I can tell you that, if you win those kind of numbers.
He was able to do what he needed to do to win races. He decided when to stop, when not to, when to change tires, when not to. He was a thinking racer, even though he didn't mind knocking somebody out of the way from time to time.
Those guys don't get the credit because it was pre-TV, pre-radio, pre-newspaper, pre-everything.
He set the standard for modern day teams by looking at this sport as a business.
But most importantly, showed his kid, a youngster named Richard, what big league racing was all about, and the training obviously stuck quite well.
Number 8.
There was a guy that won 85 times in 9 different brands of cars for 15 different race teams. You're talking to him.
Bobby Allison was a racer's racer.
Bobby Allison could win in anything he drove.
He could drive just about anything, and he could drive it fast.
So Bobby Allison came out of nowhere with a piece of junk Chevy and beat these guys, and these guys didn't like that.
Bobby was a hard-nosed driver who knew the race car and he knew the racetracks.
There's one word to me that describes Bobby Allison: combative.
Combative.
Now, he's the ultimate bad boy.
And there's a fight. Bobby Allison is stopped by his brother to help.
When it came time to put that helmet on, Bobby Allison was there for one mission.
Behind the wheel, I had no friends.
There was a time where he wasn't going to let his son pass him.
Bobby Allison, Davey Allison is son in second. Bobby Allison holds him off.
I'll take on anybody, and I'll win because I'm tougher than you are.
When you got up this morning, did you feel like you had a chance of winning this race?
Yeah, I did.
Bobby was a hard-working driver. He worked really hard, and it paid off in a lot of wins.
Bobby Allison, 80-something wins.
Every time I've interviewed him and I say, great career, 84 wins, and he's 85.
Bobby, to this day, will tell you that NASCAR is wrong, he is right, and he deserves one more win.
And he will name the date, the lap, the time, everything that happened in that race.
One of these days, we'll get that straightened out, and I have 85 wins.
The one win, I don't think, is all that important to him. The fact that it puts him one up on Darrell Waltrip, that's a big deal.
Next, drivers that define the 70s, 90s, and the new millennium battle it out.
He beat Petty. He beat Pearson. He could beat anybody.
You are looking at the 5-time champion.
Put him in the Hall of Fame now.
He was a new type of driver.
Show me the money.
When the 10 greatest drivers in NASCAR history returns. Time now for the honorable mentions that just missed the 10 greatest drivers in NASCAR history.
Gentleman Ned Jarrett.
Ned Jarrett belongs in the Hall of Fame for so many different reasons.
Two-time NASCAR champion, 50 career wins.
He is the perfect face for NASCAR.
The forgotten thing about Ned Jarrett is he retired very young. He was at the top of his game when he stopped. Probably would have had a lot more wins.
Mark Martin, without a question, is the greatest driver to never win a championship.
How about that? That's a big surprise.
Mark Martin doesn't have the championships, but he is a champion racer.
He's able to run fast no matter the circumstances, and he's been doing it a long time.
If he ever is able to win a championship, there will be a party on pit road that'll last 6 or 8 weeks.
Number 7.
Headed for tri-oval, side by side. It is Cale Yarborough breaking in front. Yarborough pulling away by 8 car lengths. Cale Yarborough will win the Alabama 500.
Cale Yarborough would have to be considered one of the all-time greats. In fact, in his autobiography, he called himself that, the greatest race car driver ever. A lot of folks took issue with that, but he certainly has some credentials. He won championships. He won a lot of races.
He was the ultimate competitor. He could flat handle the race car, no question about that.
Back straightaway, Yarborough and Allison, they're at it again.
And he had the guts to put that pedal to the metal in every situation.
He beat Petty. He beat Pearson. He could beat anybody. Darrell Waltrip. It doesn't matter. Pound for pound, Cale Yarborough is the toughest man I've ever watched drive a race car.
People do describe him as a fire plug.
Short, stocky little guy that could just wheel anything.
Probably a foot shorter than the Trophy Queen, no neck whatsoever. The guy just looked like a stock car racer.
He was a brute, and he could be a brute behind the wheel.
When he strapped the helmet on, you're in for a battle, and he'd fight you tooth and nail every lap.
Johnny Allison slides. They hit again. They drive in the turn. They're hitting the wall. They're head on the wall.
Just tough as nails. He's the kind of guy that you didn't want to mess with.
And there's a fight between Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison. The tempers overflowing.
Cale Yarborough was one of the toughest race car drivers ever. And man, he was fun to watch.
Cale Yarborough, absolutely one of the best drivers that this sport has ever seen.
This is number 6.
Well, Rick Hendrick, he picked a good one in this kid.
That's the best medicine Rick Hendrick could get.
Jeff Gordon is the original young gun.
Young kid.
Totally different than Earnhardt, totally different than what the King was.
Wasn't a good old boy from the South. He was a new type of driver.
Totally different than the old model of driver. Jeff is the new model of driver.
How much money? Show me the money. How much money did I win, man? This is awesome.
When Jeff came along in 1992, there was still a sort of the establishment, and we needed an infusion of some youth in the sport.
So he brought in new fans, he brought in a new way of marketing, sort of represented a whole new style of driver.
This just took this team to a new level.
You know, before Jeff Gordon came along, kids didn't win races. They definitely didn't win championships.
Wins his first championship in 1995.
Championships in 1995, 97, 98, 2001.
Has had 13 race win seasons, has just done everything there is to do in NASCAR.
Jeff Gordon trying to become the second 3-time winner of the Winston 2001. Jeff Gordon is again a champion of NASCAR's All-Star Night.
Even in his down years, he's a top 5 guy in the point standings. He contends for championships, he wins races, he runs up front. Jeff Gordon's the complete package.
And Jeff Gordon, I don't think he's done winning.
Number 5.
Jimmie Johnson could end up being the greatest driver of all time.
You are looking at the 5-time champion.
What he's been able to do in this
Cup Series car is nothing short of incredible. And if you don't think he's going to be one of the greatest, think again.
To run in the top 10 every weekend is tough to do, let alone win races, let alone win 5 championships in a row.
I think 5 in a row puts me in the conversation, and that's all I can hope for and ask for.
I think you can make the argument that what Jimmie Johnson has accomplished may be the greatest feat in NASCAR racing.
It's just wild for me to imagine, that I've got 5 of these big trophies and have done something that's never been done before.
Who you would consider to be the very best drivers in the sport can't touch what he's done. Now think about that. Put him in the Hall of Fame now, because there's only 2 people that have won more championships, and nobody's won 5 in a row.
If we go off the competition standpoint, the competition is probably as greater today than what it was in 1970. And it was greater then than what it was in 1950. So every 20 or 30 years, it's like the competition doubles or triples almost.
He and Chad Knaus have this brotherly type feeling between them. And I think that's what has made their success what it is.
The bottom line is they all start the season with the same opportunity to go win the championship, and he wins it year after year.
For me as a driver, at least, it makes it fun because he's the man to beat. And if you can go out there and beat him, it means a lot.
He is still writing his own history and will be writing his own history. When does it stop? When does he stop winning championships?
I have a ways to go to catch Petty and Earnhardt, but I think I'm off to a good start, and we'll see what the future holds for me.
Next, DW taking on Pearson.
And here comes David Pearson.
I always looked at David as being the best driver that I drove against.
Honey, it's me again in victory lane.
Darrell Waltrip brought it.
They know this is the car they got to beat.
When the 10 greatest drivers in NASCAR history returns. Welcome back to the 10 greatest drivers in NASCAR history. This is number 4.
You got any comment? Ain't you got anything to say?
You don't have to get bossy.
Yankees are all alike.
You don't have to get bossy.
Never know what to say.
If I were to ask Darrell Waltrip where he ranks all time as far as NASCAR drivers,
DW? He's going to say DW is at the top. He'd probably start answering before you finish the question. He'd tell you, Darrell Waltrip.
DW is awesome.
Honey, it's me again in victory lane.
He is one of the best ever.
I can say it in the simplest sentence as this. Darrell Waltrip brought it.
He talked the talk, he walked the walk, and he was able to back it up on the racetrack.
Waltrip led the last 100 laps, took the checkered flag 3/4 of a lap ahead of second place, Dale Earnhardt.
Darrell was the man in his day, especially at Bristol.
You got a new slogan. What is it? Follow me in Tennessee. I think it's true. Congratulations. Thank you.
Anybody that goes to Bristol and wins like DW won there, or wins the races and wins the championships he's won, and has meant so much to the sport, you got to look at it and you got to say one of the greatest drivers of all time.
Darrell Waltrip has won nearly 90 races in NASCAR.
84 wins actually are the most wins in the modern era. I'm proud of that. And driver of the decade in the 80s. The 80s that was me.
You can't have won 3 championships and not be one of the greatest drivers of all time. And he did it in a way that was flashy, that made people love him, that made people hate him.
I think we've got a slight psychological advantage on everybody. They know this is the car they got to beat.
if you can say something and then back it up, it's not cocky, it's confidence. And that's exactly what Darrell Waltrip had. He had confidence.
Just a fabulous race car driver, a fabulous personality who has brought a lot to the sport.
On the trioval, both cars are flat out. Petty can't make it, and David Pearson flies under the checkered flag, winner of the 15th World 600.
You know, I always looked at David as being the best driver that I drove against, as far as being able to understand his equipment and knowing when to race and when not to. He was the man to beat when we went to any kind of racetrack.
He just knew what he needed. He knew how to give the race car what it needed that day.
And here comes David Pearson down off the high bank fourth turn onto the trioval for the checkered flag.
He was just pure. I mean, he was a pure driver, and he loved to play games, mind games.
He was one of the first to realize that over the course of a 500-mile race, you didn't have to lead 500 miles. You only had to lead half a mile, and that's the half a mile at the end of the race.
You got 15, 20, 30 laps to go, miles to go, and you're tooling along pretty happy when you look in the mirror.
And then all of a sudden, here he comes.
Where'd he come from?
So many times, David Pearson would be 15th with 50 miles to go and still win the race.
He knew how to conserve the equipment, but he knew how and when to be aggressive.
Seemed like I just laid back and took it easy, and they run real hard. Of course, they had trouble.
Here's a guy who could win in everything. Here's a guy who had triple-digit wins in his career. To have over 100 victories in NASCAR.
If David Pearson had raced more, I think he would have numbers that are similar to Richard Petty's numbers.
I think Pearson is the greatest stock car driver I've ever raced against.
He is one of the all-time greats, no question.
Next, 7-time champ versus 7-time champ, battling to be the greatest driver in NASCAR history.
Without Richard Petty, NASCAR would not be NASCAR.
Dale was hard to race with because he was so rough. He was the intimidator.
Didn't mean to really turn around, meant to rally his cage over.
When the 10 returns. Welcome back. We brought you 8 great NASCAR drivers so far.
Awesome Bill from Dawsonville.
Bill's got numbers that you absolutely can't argue with.
Like, I can't believe it.
Lee Petty was the patriarch. He set the standard.
25% of the races you race in, you win.
Bobby Allison could win in anything he drove.
Now, he's the ultimate bad boy.
Behind the wheel, I had no friends.
Cale Yarborough would have to be considered one of the all-time greats.
He'd fight tooth and nail every lap.
Show me the money!
Totally different than Earnhardt, totally different than what the King was.
Jeff Gordon's the complete package.
You're looking at the 5-time champion.
Maybe the greatest feat in NASCAR.
Darrell Waltrip brought it.
I think we've got a slight psychological advantage on everybody.
Here's a guy who had triple-digit wins.
I mean, he was a pure driver.
Best driver that I drove against.
But now it's time for the greatest NASCAR drivers of them all. Number 2.
Earnhardt holds him off to win his 7th Winston Cup championship.
That's what Darrell asked you.
Dale Earnhardt Sr. was the man. He was the intimidator.
He willed his way into victory lane, pushing guys out of the way as he went.
You stand your ground. And a lot of times it comes out bad, but a lot of times you win races too.
Guys are worried about seeing that black number 3 in the rearview mirror every time they got on the racetrack.
Dale was hard to race with. He would piss off people on the racetrack.
He liked to hit you and he liked to bang on you and kind of liked to intimidate you if he could.
He was going to race you as hard as anybody you've ever raced. It didn't matter if it was lap 1 or coming to the checkered flag.
He was sort of the dividing line. People loved him, people hated him. They couldn't deny that he was a fantastic driver.
Dale Earnhardt Sr. had this beaten grin that he would just put on when he knew that he ticked somebody off.
I got to him and he turned him around. So didn't mean to really turn around, meant to rally his cage over.
He used his reputation to make guys nervous. All they'd see is that black number 3 pull up. The next thing you know, they're a half a lane high, and he's by him.
He was able to put a race car into positions where nobody else could put them.
He was tough. He was determined. He had skills.
Everybody would try to hang with him. Dale Earnhardt was in a class by himself.
No matter how beat up his car was, no matter how many laps he was down, Earnhardt never quit.
I got an ambulance and I looked back at the car and I said, man, the wheels are still on that thing.
They're going to now try to get the back deck on the car. There's nothing mechanical holding it on. They're going to have to tape it on.
He was the right man at the right time with the right personality and the right talent to come in and take NASCAR from one era into another era.
There are very few drivers in the history of the sport that you could say, I could drop him into any decade that we've ever raced and he'd be a champion. Dale Earnhardt is one of those.
He won races. He won 7 championships. He pissed a lot of people off doing it, and everybody respected him for that.
Every man on every crew has come out to the edge of pit lane to congratulate the man who has dominated everything there is to win in this sport.
This is number 1.
Greatest drivers of all time.
There's no debate here.
His nickname itself tells you everything you need to know.
The King.
The King.
The King.
You don't get a nickname the King if you're not the King.
Richard Petty is the king.
Richard's the king.
Richard Petty's the greatest race car driver of all time.
Unmatched.
He's one of a kind.
He is our sport.
Richard Petty is walking, living, breathing history.
He came along at the right time.
He grew up in the sport.
He was there almost from the beginning.
He would race 2 and 3 races a week.
It was one of the deals where I was born at the right time, under the right circumstances, and the good Lord gave me a little bit of talent and put a bunch of good people around me to make it work.
You're just going to keep winning races forever. I'm going to keep on trying, Ned. You can bet on that.
Well, the numbers say Richard Petty, and I'm not going to argue with the numbers.
7 Daytona 500 wins.
7 championships. 7 championships?
He won 27 races in 1 year back in 1967.
27 wins.
27 wins in 1967, 10 wins in a row.
10 in a row.
In fact, it's hard to finish 10 races in a row.
Single most dominant year in the history of the sport.
A lot of race wins.
200 wins.
200 wins.
200 races.
Nowhere close is the next competitor.
Pure success.
He is the king. He is the king of stock car racing. Ask anybody. They'll tell you.
He's one of the best, if not the best, that ever drove a stock car.
Greatest driver this sport's ever seen.
Hey, I had people ask me all over the country, was he really that good? And I went, no, he got lucky 200 times. Come on.
Richard Petty is the king because of what he does away from the track as well as what he does on the track.
You talk to young kids, old fans, they all know Richard Petty.
He's universally known.
He had the look, he had the walk, he had that cowboy hat.
He had a style, he had that infectious smile.
He lures everybody in with a nice smile, and he's got time for everybody.
He signed 1 billion autographs.
More autographs than everybody else in the field combined.
He would take care of the fans.
The personality is just about as important as being a good race car driver.
Richard Petty stands head and shoulders above anybody else who's ever gotten behind the wheel of a race car.
He helped make NASCAR what it is today.
Without Richard Petty, NASCAR would not be NASCAR.
He is NASCAR embodied.
Richard Petty is the #1 greatest driver of all time.
He is truly the king / godfather of racing.
You know, if I'd have come at any other time in NASCAR history or my history, it might not have worked. It was the right time for me and my circumstances and my talent.
You picked a good one in this kid.
Speed again in victory lane.
Bill Elliott is going toward immortality. And if you don't think he's going to be one of the greatest, think again.
Bobby Allison holds him off.
And there's a fight. The tempers overflowing.
That's what's called a ass kick.